Okay. What I'll do is like I'll also share my screen, and then you can work with that screen. So for the today's session, you have some basic learning with R, and what I'm requesting you to do is like you create some variables that I mentioned here. Is like you have con.1, that's the first column name, and con.2 is the second column name, and con.3 is the third column name. And I have given some data so that you just copy the data and then put it in the code, so that it will be helpful. So I am requesting you to create three kind of vectors. That is the column is kind of vector basically, and you're going to convert the vector data into a kind of data frame. Okay? The task one is to create con.1. That's the first column name. I'm not going to do it, but I'm just going to tell you how to do it. And then similarly con.2, and then con.3. And once you're done with creating these variables, and then create a data frame called result, and add these three data points, or it's like the vectors, into the data frame. So you must have result later on, and the result should have these three column names. At any point, like if you're not able to do it or not able to accomplish this task, please feel free to ask me. And also we can also discuss with the other people who are in the chat. Then we can mutually learn. So it's not a problem. Done. Perfect, Anirudh. Let's wait for others as well. Let's see how far they are progressing. So once you're done with the task, and basically you can let me know. Then I'll be able to see how far you're going. Venkat did it right. All right, very good. So I'm just waiting for Swati and then Naveen. Okay. Shall we move ahead, Swati and Naveen?
Yeah, done.
Oh, you're done? Okay, pretty. Swati, how is it going at your end? Okay, let me see chat. Wow, perfect. So the code is quite simple, right? So you are supposed to copy the data, and then put in with a concatenate function. Then later you'll be able to create those three variables. I'm doing so that you'll also understand how things are done, right? So create condition 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then to create that as a data frame, you can say data frame con dot 1 comma con dot 2 comma con dot 3, and you have a kind of data frame created. And I normally what I do is like I print and see how it is looking like. And also I should also ensure whether the data is a data frame, and I can use the basic function like structure result. So it's a data frame with 8 observations and then 3 variables. Okay. Now, the huge part of the data scientist or the kind of data analyst is that you need to know how to rename columns, because we have 3 columns now called con1, con2, con3, but they're not really easy to understand. Like for example, say if there's a third person coming in and if he wants to know what they are, and they'll not be able to know. Why? Because the names are not pretty easy for them to understand. Hence, what I normally do is like I normally rename the columns, and the renaming columns can be done with dplyr. Right now, I would request you to load dplyr. Okay, load dplyr in R, like in your R environment. How will you do that? And can anyone tell me how to do that? Like in the
library.
chat? Yeah, perfect.
Library.
Very good, very good. So library and dplyr. Okay, I think it should be already there in your system, so it is loaded, right? And there is one variation with this, right? For example, say imagine that you are using a command, right? And you are sending this file to someone else, and where that guy may not really have dplyr in the system, right? If you just use library dplyr, and then it will say the package is not there in the system, and so he will not be able to use it. Hence, there is another way that you can also, if you are sharing your R code to someone else, and for case of reproducibility, what we normally do is like you say a require dplyr. So once you execute require dplyr, and then what happens is that it says, okay, so the system needs dplyr, and starts installing, and then it will start using dplyr. Okay. Imagine there is a situation where you are trying to send the code to your friend, but the friend does not have all the packages that you're including in R. Hence, I normally recommend you to use a require function. Require function will automatically pull the data package that you need for the analysis. Hence, it will request the system to, okay, I need dplyr, just install dplyr, and then it will call dplyr. Right? Another thing that, for example, say if you do not really know how the require function works, and there is something called as help, and I forgot to introduce this one earlier. And either you can say help with require. Right? If you say help require, and you can see in your, for example, give me a second. Did you see that there's a small pop-up or like kind of information that you got in your R environment, where on the bottom right hand pane you can see there's a help window opened up, and it says what is required, and it normally tells you what are things. For example, even if you do not really know any kind of information which is available in R, and you can normally call for help. And help can be normally used in different ways. You can also use a question mark and say require, which means again it will call for a help. This will go to the page again. Okay, it will automatically load. Imagine I do not really know standard deviation, right? And I can go for just give me a second. That's my son. Sorry. So, like you can, like if you do not really know anything about some command or something, or like you just want to randomly search some information, you can use double quotes and let's say like stand or something. I'm not doing anything, but I'm just trying to see whether there's some commands or something with the name stand, and I can basically use double quotes, and it will search the entire document of R, and then say, okay, if there is anything related to this particular information that I gave as help, and basically search and tries to find it, and if it is not there, and it normally says like no results found. But if in case like if I say deviation, which is a normal thing that we normally do with statistics and stuff, and I'm just using deviation as a search tool, and still it'll show me if there is some results found, and it'll normally show me if there is any documentation related to deviation. Okay, and it's kind of loading up in my system. Like you can also try with other things. So there are three ways that you can use help command. Like you can just say help with some particular function that you want to know, or use one single question if we really know things. If you're really not sure about stuff, then you can use double question mark, right? However, like you will normally get more information from the help stuff, right? So you can basically use help, but it's also supposed to pull some information with double question marks, and sometimes it does not really work, right? So what I normally do is like I use a single question mark or help command to get some information. Okay. So that's how you can now accessing help in R and run. Now let's get back to our task part, right? So now you have started already. Sorry about that. Now the next task is to like the first task is to rename the columns. Okay, so we just went beyond that. So now how to rename it. Now you have the dplyr package loaded in. Give me a second. Please join Zoom. Thanks, Anirudh, for helping me out. I hope Manikan will be able to join us. Okay, perfect. So now let's work on the renaming part. Okay, and I was telling you that the con.1 is not really giving me a kind of right meaning. Now let's create a temporary data frame. Okay, so call that as the task is to create a data frame called kind of test. Okay, and how to use the rename function and how to access it. Right? Basically, you need to use dplyr, and within the dplyr functions, we are going to do it. And so we have a data frame called result. Just create the data frame first, right? And then you say rename. It's quite easy, not complicated. That's the benefit of using R. And you need to rename a particular columns, right? And then what's happening with the rename is that you basically need to give whatever you want to, whatever the kind of desired name initially, and followed by the name that you want to replace. For example, say I want to say condition 1.1 is equal to con.1, right? That is the desired name is condition.1, that is given first, right? And second information is the actual column name, right? And similarly, at a condition.2 in con.2, condition.3 is equal to con.3. Right? So when I execute this command, and now I can see I can just print head result, and when you print that information now, Sorry,
Print test.
it should like print test actually. Yeah, head test. Now we can see it got changed, where I get information from the test data frame where everything got renamed. Okay, so this is kind of like easy way to rename your columns. And most of the times, what I encounter is that some of the data frames that I use for analysis, they will have a kind of a very weird name, and I will not be able to understand. Hence, also my professor will not be able to understand what I'm trying to do with the data and how they name the data. And I need to really produce a kind of report where I say like, well, this is this, and and explain. Hence, what I do is like I just rename the columns in a proper way, and then present the information. And now I recommend you to try with empty cars data, right? If you type empty cars in the console, you'll be able to see the information. Okay. And you can see there are like a lot of columns like mpg, cylinder, displacement, hp, dart, weight, qsec, vs, am, gear, and carb. Okay, but you do not really know what is what, right? One thing is like you basically can get the help and say help with empty cars, and now it says in the pane that where you normally access the files. In the files pane, you can see that's help that opened up for empty cars, and it says like miles in the US gallon, and number of cylinders, displacement, gross horsepower, rear axle ratio, weight, like 1/4 of the mile time, engine, transmission, number of forward gears, and number of carburetors. Right. Now, maybe I will not really request you to rename every single thing. Okay, so the task is like select using dployer. I request you to select miles mpg and cylinders, the number of cylinders information, and then maybe hp column. Okay, so these three columns you're supposed to select, and basically store this information, the information to test2, test underscore 2, and later rename mpg to miles per gallon. You can see that I'm not using any space here, which is a good way, because if you have space and it will not normally recode or rename, sorry, it will not rename the column, hence I don't really use it. And if you want to say a number of cylinders, either use a dot or use an underscore, right? And then say horsepower, right? So this is one thing that you are supposed to learn. So once you're learning, also learn how the things work, right? So don't use space for the column, and it might not really work. Okay. So this is a task now. In the sense, you use an empty cast data, and only select the columns like mpg, cylinders, and horsepower, and then rename so that anyone can understand. All right, but store that in test2, because so that we don't mess up with the main data frame. And once you're done with that, just let me know. I'm just going to grab some water. I'll be back. And once you're done, and just put it in the chat that you're done with the task. Okay, I'm back. Let's see who has done it. Okay, Anirudhan has done it. Perfect. Good to know. Venkat has done it. Wonderful. Are you both from kind of a programming background? Like Anirudh,
Yes.
what do you do? As like kind of work that you do? Hi, Anirudh. Am I audible?
Hi, I was typing the message. Yes, I am a software engineer by profession, actually.
Wonderful. That's where are you working?
I work in a company called Infoteam Softwares. It's
Okay.
near Nuremberg.
Nuremberg. So you're in
Yeah,
Germany.
I am in Germany. Yeah.
I never know it.
Didn't you? Okay, I'm here actually. I'm closer to you than you actually.
Okay, like, okay, so maybe we can catch up later, right? So,
Yeah.
Venkat, what is your profession?
I'm a web developer, Bala. I
Are,
work
you- are
in
you
Bangalore.
you work in Bangalore? So, are you want do you want to switch on to data science and stuff?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so are you a kind of PHP based or
Yes,
like Java based?
PHP based actually.
Ah, okay. So my wife is actually kind of PHP developer.
Uh-huh.
That's good to know. Yeah. Right. So maybe like kind of a small advice to kind of aspiring data scientist, right? Instead of learning, like I do not really want to say it, but it's better to say it as well. In the sense, like programming language, you can learn anytime. Okay,
Yeah.
but I normally advise you to learn the base of stat. If you do not know the stat behind whatever we are doing, and it's not really worth. And like the future sessions that we will have will also cover the stat part of it. Okay, and also I'm specifically hosting some data stat basics and other stuff on a Sunday session, and if you're really interested you can also join that one.
Sure.
So every single week you'll have kind of a base R programming thing going on on Saturdays, and on Sundays you'll have the basics of statistics covered, and if you're interested you can also join that. However, I'll also throw some information in the same R sessions, but the stat part I'm trying to go right from the basic in terms of like trying to tell you what is mean, median, mode, and how those things will work and other stuff, right?
That's great.
When like basically extensively talk about like univariate, bivariate, multivariate analysis, and then I'll tell what is hypothesis, what is hypothesis testing, and how things will go around with that. But I'll not do the similar kind of approach will not be used in the R sessions. Okay.
Has that session begun already, or?
It's like I'm trying to frame a kind of syllabi.
Oh, okay, nice.
Okay? And most probably I'll start next week, or it's like maybe a week later. Okay. So once
That is great,
I'll
actually.
let you
Yeah.
know. I'll let you know in the Skype chat so that you can catch up the information. Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Perfect. No issue. Right. So how are things with other people? Like I
I'm
think
getting one error, Bala.
yeah. Please post it across. Who is getting the error?
It's Naveen.
Okay, yes, Naveen. What kind of error are you getting in?
I'm just posting my code. Let me know if it's correct or not.
Okay. Yeah, you putting in the chat now?
Yeah.
Please do.
So is this correct?
Yeah. Is it not working?
No, it's giving me error like object empty cars not found.
It's MT. It's not MEAT. It is MT. A small typo. It's not. Your code is perfectly right, but no, check with the typos and check with the. R is really weird in that.
Yeah, it's working now.
But it basically tells you where it normally tells you like I could not really find the data, or it's like it will exactly tell you what kind of error that you are getting. Right? Imagine that I'm going to paste the code here and test it. Right? It says the object test2 not found, object MET cars not found. Like you get how R is able to identify the errors, right?
Yeah.
It tells you basically where's your problem.
Actually, I'm doing the same mistake. I type it separately, empty card.
Okay.
It's working. Then I thought, why it's working and why it is not working there?
Yeah, like when we
So-
type stuff, you normally get into this trouble. Okay.
Yeah.
Not a problem. So it's like that's the joy of learning. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Right. So I'll basically, how is with everyone else? Do you think I'm going fast or it's like, okay, thanks, Swati, for your feedback. Right. For the others like who join later, right? So I'll also explain how things will work here. And maybe for Sukhantan and then for Manikantan, you can see what we are trying to do here is like we are trying to rename columns using a function called rename within dplyr, and that's really easy for you to rename the columns in the kind of in the desired format. Okay, right. So the task that is given to you is like you need to basically select a few columns and then rename the columns, and then store it into a temporary data frame called test2. Okay, so I have test2. That's a temporary data frame name, and then I select, I use the data frame on empty cars, and then I'm selecting MPG cylinder HP. These are the column labels that is already there in the empty cars data. However, for the understanding for my own clarity, I'm just going to rename it so that I can use it for my analysis. When I present the report, it will be good with these kind of names, so anyone can understand how things are going. So I'm using a function called rename, and in the rename I have miles per gallon. That's the desired name, and I give the column name which is already existing in the data frame. And this is also similar for the recode function. Okay, we'll use the same thing. I'll tell you how to do it. But understand anything that you want to give, or it's like the desired name should be in the first place, followed by the column which is already column name that is already existing. And once you're done with that, and if you want to, you can also test whether it is executed or not. Right? And I use head test2. It tells me like they got replaced, and the column names are whatever I want to rename. It is existing now, right? Any questions here, guys? Like, if you have any other questions, just let me know. That should be like the second part, where you're trying to give the column name. It should be very specific, and it should not change any format with the existing column name. Okay, and that's the only thing that you are supposed to be cautious. Right? And then I told you we can also use head to see, like for example, I want to say 10 rows, right? And this is not a difficult stuff. Basically, you can say head test2, and I just want 10 rows, and I give the number of rows that I want. And once I do that, and I'll get the first 10 rows. Okay, so this is how you can customize your information. Imagine you're trying to look at some 10, 15 observations from some of the data set, and then you can use a head test of 10. Okay, and it's not a huge stuff, but it's really useful when you're trying to print some results. Right? Now the next challenging part of a data scientist is that trying to recode information. Since, for example, say I have number of cylinders here from the test2 data frame, but it is 6, 4, 8, 4, and that stuff. Right? In case if I want to make that as a kind of 6 to it's numeric stuff, but if you want to change that as a character like SIX instead of 6, then you can do that. Okay, and for that you need to use a command called as recoding, and I call it as a recode variables, and that's how even the other data scientists will also say. Right? Right. So now what I am planning to do is like how things are going around. And the task is also given clearly here. It's like you access the empty cast data, and then have a look at the data frame using the head function, but just look at the first 10 observations of the data frame, and create a temporary data frame called test. Did we already create test? And if so, just use it, just override it, don't worry, and create a new data frame called test, and recode the gear information in empty cast data, right? And I'm going to do it. right? And you will follow the other task where you will decode the variable empty cast data, where I think, sorry, this is a VS variable. It's not highlighted here. VS variable to V-shaped and straight. Okay, and if you just want to know what is VS, you can say it is a. You can use a help document. In the help document, you can say I can see that the VS is the engine shape. Okay, whether it is V-shaped or straight shaped. Okay, and we want to, instead of having 0 and 1, we want to change that to V-shaped and straight within the rows. Okay, let me show you how to do it with the first task, where I'm going to change the gear information, and you can see the gear information is number of forward gears. And let me have a look at the empty cars first, right? And see. One thing that clearly says is that the empty cast data has only numeric information, and where even the gear information is it's like a numeric, and it has 4, 3, 4. And what you can understand is that it's not a categorical data. Okay, so initially you need to understand what kind of data structure that is, and if you do not, sorry, data class that is. Like if you do not really know what kind of data class that we are working with, and it will be really hard to recode information. And the recode information normally works for kind of factor data. If it is a factor, it has some levels, or if it is a categorical data, and it works really well. And so what I'm supposed to do is I need to do two things with recoding information. Since this data frame has only numeric information, initially I need to mutate, then change the gear information to a factor, right? And then I need to recode the information. Okay, I'll show you how to do it, and later on you apply the same with the VS variable. Okay, now let's do that. I'm going with the task, right? So in terms of empty cars, and I'm accessing it, and I'm trying to print the first 10 rows and see how things are there. So it should work later on. Let's not worry about the output, because it's taking some time in the system. And yeah, it printed the first 10. So I get gears like 4, 3, and 4, but I do not really know whether what kind of the max and min value of the gear. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to do a summary of empty cars. It's always good to check the data first and then go ahead later. And gear, yeah, it has a minimum value of 3 and a maximum value of 5. But I can really understand from the data structure that is already there, it is a categorical data, but it's not clearly indicated as categorical. Hence, now I need to really change everything. Okay, so I am creating a test data frame. It's a temporary data frame that I'm going to use it. And then I access the empty cars data. And then I introduce the pipe function. In the pipe function, I start with mutate. Okay, so one thing that you are supposed to be careful is in the rename function, you don't normally use mutate. Right? You don't need it. Right? But how there's no point in using mutate with renaming. But when you are trying to change something within the rows, it's always good to use mutate function, right? Without that, you cannot really use the recode stuff. Okay. But the first task for me is to mutate and change the gear information to a factor. Okay. And I say gear is the name that I already have. And still, I'm also being so. Which when I do this, what happens is that it takes the column gear, and then it modifies the column basically, because I'm just giving gear as the name for the column. Right? If I give a different information here, for example, if I say gear _1, and this will create a new column called gear _1. Right? I'm not doing that, but I'm trying to modify the column as it is. And say just type gear and say factor gear. So what this will do? Any volunteers? What this code will do? This part of the code will do. So, anyone alive? In terms of can you say what this part of the code will do?
No, really.
No, Bala.
No idea? I was like, you don't really understand what I'm doing.
Assign factors. Assign factors.
Mhm.
For example, you gave us like Audi, BMW, those things. No, that
No.
example. Is
Um,
it something like that with variables instead of for some other variable or names?
Yeah, so it's basically you were kind of near to the answer, but it's not exact.
Okay.
But it's like it's a very good attempt to really go through this function. Now, what it'll do is like it'll try to create. It will not create it changes the column gear. Okay, because I'm just using the name here gear, and then I'm factoring it. And since I have it's if you just look at the structure of the data. And I basically have numeric information, right? Everything is numeric. Even the gear information is numeric. If you remember from the first class where we talked about the data classes, we have integer, numeric, factor, and other things, right? When you want to recode variables, you cannot just use numeric information recode. Like if you just apply without this this line of code, you cannot really recode it, right? Basically, you can recode only the factor data. Hence, this factor gear will basically convert the numeric information into a factor. Okay, you can also say asterisk factor, right? If you remember from the other classes, like where we talked about quieting information, right? You can also do that, right? But basically, you can just if you really want to change some numeric information to factor in the dplyr pipes or in the normal R environment, you can just give factor. So this function will factor the gear information. Okay, let's do this one first. Okay, so for everyone's understanding, and let's try this one first, and then see the test. Okay, structure test. Right? Do you see how this got changed now? Like if you compare with the empty cars information, if you look at the structure of empty cars, it says like it has the gear as a numeric data. But when I change that as a factor, right? And when I use this function mutate gear is equal to factor gear, and since it just basically changes the column to a factor. Right? Now it says a factor with 3 levels, 3, 4, and 5. Right? And now with the factor, when I factor the information, then I can use, then I can use recoding, right? So the next part of the code will go into recode. Okay, so this is easy, and you say recode, and if you remember from the rename stuff, right? You need to give the desired name first, and later followed by the actual thing. And I am planning to change that as like there's like only 3 categories, right? 3, 4, and 5. I say third gear. I was like, let's use like third gear. This is just for the class. I can and another thing that you're supposed to be careful is that whenever you're changing stuff, right? And you're supposed to, for the numbers, you're supposed to give this symbol, right? Which can be accessed in my system. It's on the top, like below the escape button, near to the number 1, right? And if you just press the button, and then like I have a German keyboard, so it's kind of weird to.
Yeah, neat. It's tilt, right?
It
That
can
symbol.
tilt. Yeah, it's the tilt one, and you're supposed to use the tilt function. Okay, for the numbers. Okay, and then you say 3, give a comma, and fourth gear is equal to right. Let's see if that works. Maybe sometimes I might be wrong. So what? Okay. Error in use method recode. No applicable method for recode applied to an object called class data frame. Okay, give me a second. My maybe sometimes it might be the other way around as well sometimes. Let's see. Is it working and your end? I would recommend you to try this one, right? And in your system and check whether this code is working.
It's throwing the same error.
Okay. Now, like I've already used this kind of stuff. Let's see if I have something. Not really. Let me go back and check some of the files that I have already that I used to recode. Data cleaning, data analysis, okay. Let's check in this one. The basic problem is like it's not understanding. Like it says it cannot really work with the data frame. Yeah, so, sorry. The problem is like I just applied recode without mutate. One error is that, okay. You cannot just do recode. The problem is that whenever you are trying to recode information, right, and you are supposed to clearly indicate the data, like the column that you are accessing, okay, and then also you need to use mutate function. That's the issue, right? You need to say mutate gear equal to recode. Okay, so 10. And then reverse the problems. I'm sorry, like I kind of forgot how I work. It's quite easy to get lost when you're trying to when you do programming. So okay, let's see now how this works, right? So basically, one thing that you like, probably might have learned now since with the mistake that I did, right? So when you're trying to recode information, right, you need to be very careful that you use mutate function because you're trying to rewrite the entire information uh, uh, in the data frame, right? So hence you are supposed to be very, you need to be very sure that you use mutate and then use recode information. Okay, recode and also say gear. And another problem that I encounter now is that I did not really declare the column name, right? You say mutate gear and then recode this information, recode particular column gear, and where the information is 3, 4, and 5. Okay, and now it goes back to the earlier problem where we had third gear is equal to, as I told you, the desired name and then the actual name. Okay. If you're like no, just following me, I'm kind of that's really weird. But I did that earlier and checked my codes. It worked. Okay, let's see test, head test, if this one works at the moment. Gives me NA.
Bala, I think it should be reverse with double quotes, yeah.
Yep.
But it should be reversed, like 3 equals to third case.
Yeah, true. Like, I kind of like,
Yeah.
see, does it work for you?
Yes, Bala, it worked.
Yeah. Perfect. Let's see test. Yeah. So you basically use recode and then the column name and the actual name here with the desired name here. But if it is a character and basically use the double quotes, right? Imagine that you're going to change that to number again and then use the same type. Okay, so let's see if I want to replace it with, imagine that maybe like 30, 40, and 50 kind of stuff, right? And I see instead of having double quotes on the third gear and fourth, the ones that we use for the characters, instead use this information again, like 30, 40, and then like 50. So it's basically like if you want to change numbers, and then you can you are supposed to use the tilde function, and if not, if you are trying to give a character name, use the double quotes. And I normally get messed up with this one, and normally I go back to some of the data that I have. Okay, and it's not working as well. One way that I can do is like I can just give that as a character, and then recode later. But I'll also sort this one out and then just like get back to you maybe in the kind of short video I'll make about this recode stuff and then put it in, right? But this is how you basically do it in terms of recoding information, right? And now try with the next one where you change all the information for the data VS, okay, where you have empty, where you are supposed to change from 0 to V-shaped and 1 to straight. And I hope like with the thing that we did, like kind of with the mistake that I did, right, I think you'll not be able to do the same mistake again. And basically first convert the column into a factor, and then again use immediate function, and with the recode ensure that you use the column and the and give the appropriate name here. Okay, and this is kind of reverse, right? So where you are supposed to give the column the row observations first, and then you give the desired name later. Okay. Okay, Venkat has done it. Perfect. Good job. Wonderful. Right. So did you also print and test it, Venkat and Anirudh?
Yes, Bala.
Wonderful. Nice. Good, 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 good. Yeah, pretty good.
Bala, did you turn off your screen sharing? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, no, just asking because
Okay.
I
Yeah.
didn't see anything right now, so I was just
Yeah, like I kind of no.
no issues.
Yeah, I'll get back. So,
Yeah, sure.
I'm just trying to see, how to sort out this number, how to change the numbers. I'm trying to give a kind of update rather than like instead of waiting.
Maybe probably we don't need to use the tick marks.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
use
True,
only
true.
tick for that
Yeah, that's
existing
true.
columns.
Yeah, true. That's true. You're right. It's like normally, why I tend to forget is that like you don't normally use it many times.
Yeah.
And also in terms of like understanding the data, right? So you need to, if you have like used it for many times, you can really understand how things work, right? Let me start sharing the screen here. Yeah, like if you look at if you want to change the numbers like from 3 to 30, and it's a number again, and since I like kind of forgot the data structure, so you don't have to specifically use tick marks here. So you're trying to change the number 3 to 30, so just give 30 as such, like how I think Venkat pointed out, like you don't have to really use tick marks. Okay. And that's how you do. So let's keep it as like for numeric change, right? And let's keep it for like for character change. Okay. So now everyone has done it, like in terms of changing the VS variable to V-shaped and straight. It should be should follow this structure. Here like 3 is equal to third gear, and you will have 0 is equal to V-shaped. Okay, I'll also do it from my end and see. And let's put it as test underscore 2. Keep it as 3 and empty cars and mutate first, like basically you need to mutate VS and change as a factor. If it is only if when you have like numbers, and basically the system will recognize it as a numeric or a kind of integer data, and it's always better to change it as a factor. And then you say mutate, and then say VS is equal to recode VS, and say 1 is equal to V-shaped. Is it 0? Okay, 0 is equal to V-shaped as per the document. Yeah, and then 1 equals to straight. Okay. So the code, yeah, the code should run like this. And then if you print test 3, say head test underscore 3. Yep, you can see that there's a change in the VS column, right? And
So Bala, this empty cars is inbuilt data of some package?
it's already available in our environment, so you don't have to really It's a kind of inbuilt data set. There are like quite a lot of data set available in R. Like if you type, there's another data set called as Iris.
So this is kind of for demo purpose, like kind of we can test our skill or something, like we play around.
Yeah,
It is not really.
it is like they normally give you a data set to wrangle with, like to try to, if you want to understand, test your knowledge, or it's like if you want to get a grasp of R, basically, and then they give you some specific data sets, and you can just use it for wrangling purpose. Even for example, say the Iris data, which is already there in the R environment, they use it for multiple purpose. They demonstrate how to use plotting, how to use even so you can, some people have done it for even machine learning stuff. They use Iris dataset.
So can we have any function to like list down all the these kind of iris? It will like list iris and then empty card and then other stuff. So is there any function we can list down all
the data sets within R? I'm like
yeah.
Let me be honest, like I am pretty not sure, but I can find some help and show you later.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, but like at the moment I don't really have I'm not getting that in my mind, but
Yeah,
it is always available, that you can also see the data set that is already available in R. I think I have worked when I was learning R, I got to know about it, but I forgot it now.
Oh, okay, okay.
Right.
I mean, it's okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
So now let's go with ggplot. Okay, so basically we have loaded ggplot in the session 2 or 3. I hope you install the package, and now let's load the package, right? With library ggplot2, and if you don't have ggplot2 package, and I would normally recommend you to install the package using install.packages, right? Install or packages ggplot, and then you need to give it in double quotes ggplot2. Okay. And if you're like, for example, if you're going to teach someone else, and please be sure that you don't just use ggplot, right? Tell them that they are supposed to use ggplot2. And this is a mistake that I did when I was teaching last year. And I thought in the instruction I just gave like install ggplot package, and then people really messed up with that because the instruction was not clear. So whenever you recommend someone, and tell them that they are supposed to use ggplot2 package. Okay. And today we'll learn how to do a kind of basic bar chart, right? And I'm going to use the empty cast data and see how the number of gears affects the miles per gallon. It's quite similar to a kind of Indian scenario where we see how many liters that the car is giving. Say how many kilometers that the car is giving per liter petrol or diesel, right? And similarly, but it might also have some effect of gears, number of gears it has. Like maybe the more the gear, and probably it's not going to give you more miles per gallon, right? But these are the kind of exploratory data that we are trying to see here, and we'll try to see some relationship between two variables using some basic visualization, right? Even before getting into the actual analysis, it's always better to get a visualization first and then see whether we can use some modeling with that later on. Okay. Hence, what I'm trying to do here is like I'm going to use dplyr first, and then subset the required columns, and then I'm going to apply this plotting function. Okay. So now we are getting into the area where we are trying to couple dplyr and ggplot2 together. Okay, let's say I'm going to create a new data called as plot1, sorry, and then I'm going to subset the data empty cars, and the variables that I'm really interested is select the gears, yeah, and then mpg. I think gear is just gear, not as gears. Okay, right. And then the plot one has the required columns, And I can also say, test it always if you're not sure. Go on. Yeah, it just has like two information here, like gear and then MPG. Right? You don't really need to do it, but I am trying to introduce in such a way that it works along, like how dplyr can be coupled with ggplot. Okay, right? For this data set, it's like really small and it's easy for us to understand. You can just basically start with ggplot on empty cars, but I'm not trying to do that here, since I'm trying to couple that with dplyr. Hence, I'm trying to hence you will understand how things will work when you are working with large data sets. Okay. Now, so if you want to initiate a plot, and you are supposed to say ggplot first, okay, and then do the data plot_1, right? So what this will do, this command will basically access the data, but it will not really know what it has to do. And then you're supposed to give the x-axis and y-axis that is required for the plotting, and that is called aesthetics here. Or sometimes it's also called as axis function, AXES, the axis that is required for plotting. And say, now let me ask you a question. Like if you're, I know some of you are really good programmers, right? But let's see whether you have a very good understanding of the data, right? Which of these, there are two data sets, right? In sense of gear and then MPG. And which one should go to the x-axis? Which one should go to the y-axis?
Gear should be x-axis and MPG should be y-axis.
Pretty good, right? So why? Because like it's a categorical data, right? But it's not a categorical data until now. And I can also apply the categorical. Now I can convert the categorical. I can do the quiescing stuff here. For example, I can say factor here. I can also do that one here. That's the x-axis information, okay? And then I'm going to do the y-axis information here. So at this point, if I just execute it, nothing will happen. Why? Because I just gave what should come in the x-axis and what should come in the y-axis. And the ggplot normally works as a kind of layer, and it adds one layer, and on the top of it, it will add the next layer, right? Until this point, it just added it with the ggplot command. It understood it has to create a graph, right? And then later it understood it has a data. Until now, it does not really have any information on whether it has to create x-axis or y-axis. But with the aesthetics function, it normally tells what should come in the x-axis and y-axis. But it will not still plot anything. Why? Because it does not really have the kind of next facet, or it's like next layer. The next layer, it will tell, okay, whether you need to take this data and then what kind of a chart that you want, right? And the charts have another function called geom, and they call it geoms. These geoms will add another layer. It's kind of it can be a AB line, or can be area, a bar chart, it's like box plot, or a color, contour and other stuff. Okay, there are a lot of different charts. Okay, but today I'll just restrict myself to bar chart. Okay, it's a geom bar, and there is one more thing that you're supposed to do, and it's like you need to give the stat function. The stat function says whether I want to use a count data, right? Or it's like kind of I need to use identity or other things. Okay, so I'll tell you why I am giving identity here later, right? So if I just execute this code, I'll get a plot. Okay, just keep that in mind, right? Now I'll explain why stat function is used. Imagine sometimes you will also use only one column to create a bar chart, right? And in that case, it will just count the number of information that is there in the. Give me a second. Sorry. Sorry, family trouble. Okay, so I'm back now in terms of explaining. Right. Imagine that I'm just trying to see the number of observations that is there in a particular column. For example, I can also use just gear as an axis, right? ggplot plot underscore so empty cars AS. I just want to give X information where it is gear, okay? And say like factor. So in this case, I just have one information, which is just I'm taking one column, and I just want the count data. Okay. Sorry. So there's something missing here.
Identity you given in double quotes, but count is that's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. It's like I'm just trying to explain you the part of stat from command here, right? Imagine that I'm just taking in this code here, okay, in this part, and just say stat is equal to count. Let's keep it like that. Okay. So imagine that sometimes what happens is that, for example, say you are trying to gather data about some store information. Imagine that where you are collecting, okay, the males and females coming to the shop, and then you want to plot an information. You want to show a bar chart where how many males are there, how many females are coming to the shop. Right? In this case, you cannot really use the identity function, and you just use the count function, right? And when you want to use a count function, it basically takes the column and then it counts the data within the column, number of males within the column, number of females within the column, and then plots it. Right? And with the identity function, what happens is that it maps out from X and Y. So I have information kind of called gear and I have information called as NPG. Now I need to find a kind of relationship between these two data and then plot it in the chart. Okay, so where I just use identity. And also be sure that when you're using identity, it's normally having X-axis and Y-axis information, not the other things. Okay. So with the stat count function, and you're basically telling like, okay, it has only one column, and you're just defining only X-axis, and then where you say, okay, just count information which is there in the X-axis and the present. Okay. And with the code that I typed with it's like with the empty cards, just with gears, you can see if you look at it, has like 15 cars that has 3 gears, and it has like somewhere around maybe 11 or like maybe 12 cars that has 4 gears, and they're like around like 4 or 5. Yeah, 5 cars that has 5 gears, right? And with the other plot that I did, for example, say here, now it finds kind of relationship between these two things. But do you think the chart is right? It's like it's giving the kind of right information. It's up to you now, like because I created the plot with the x-axis and y-axis and stuff and other things. But do you think this is kind of meaningful?
Yeah, I mean, the units are missing for one.
The units are there. Like it is, it has like the y-axis starts from 0 to 0 and goes to 300, and the factor has like 3, 4, and 5. That's fine. I think the axis information are there. Like even you can see the factor gear is there, MPG is there. Like you don't have to really do with ggplot. Like you can also change it, modify it, but we will come to that in a later part, right? But do you think the plot really makes sense? Like if you imagine that you are a data scientist, right? So it's like you are an analyst. And do you think this is like kind of making sense to you? What this has, like what the code has really done? Yeah. Where do you find the trouble? Because with the programming skills that we have, right? So we can really create something, right? But the problem is that we don't really we don't really know how to interpret the graph, right? if you look at this one, what it has done is like it has. Anyone have any answers for this one? Like instead of now me going overboard, I just want to listen to you and then take it further.
I think we don't know the exact value
Mm.
that's calculating in terms of y-axis.
Yeah, it's like the x-axis is really fine, but the y-axis is kind of messed up. In sense, what it has done, like maybe it took, for example, say it took the third gear and then it basically summed up everything in the MPG column and then gave it to me. Do you get what I mean? Right? And also it took the fourth gear and whatever rows that is corresponding to fourth gear, it took the MPG information from the fourth gear and then it summed up and then gave me here, like gave me as an information here, which is not really meaningful, right? So what you are supposed to basically do is like you are supposed to basically take a mean of the MPG, right? And then plot it, and then it kind of makes sense to you, right? So and like what you are supposed to do, you are supposed to use summarize function, right? And then calculate the mean, right? And then say mean underscore MPG, and then say mean MPG. Right? So if you look at and also you need to group it by. I forgot that one, right? Group by gear. So with the code that I did earlier, right? So if you just say print plot1 plot underscore, right? So it just has like only one value, right? And that's the thing. That's where you're supposed to use group by function. And when you try a group by, now if you print plot underscore 1, and now you have like two columns where it has like 3, 4, 5 in the mean of the MPG. Now this kind of makes sense to me, where I can really compare and contrast, right? And I can also present. And instead of having MPG here, I say mean underscore MPG. Yeah. Why? Because we have changed the column name. Like we took a summary of it. Right? Now let's do a plot again. It'll get printed. Let's wait for a second. Right. So it should come in. Yeah, this one makes sense now, right? If you look at this one, okay, so I can see the car which has like 4 gears basically gives you more mileage compared to the gears that like the cars that has like 5. Right? It might have different reasons. Okay, so the reasons might be like if I ask a kind of an automobile engineer or someone, they'll be able to interpret it in a better way, but. So as a data scientist, that's another thing. Like if you want to become a data scientist, you are supposed to also understand the domain information. Like you must have a domain knowledge. Right? You should know how things are working, how the numbers are working, and what kind of information that you're getting from the data. Okay. So basically, when you want to become a data scientist, you should also be specialized to the domain knowledge. Okay. So when you're trying to get the data, get information about the data. So what kind of data that is, what kind of relationship that will also have. Right, like with a kind of raw idea, like if I'm not a kind of mechanical engineer or kind of automobile engineer to interpret this data, but I can just create that graph and give it to someone else. Then they will be able to understand, okay, how things are going on. Right? They will be able to find a relationship. Right? But now with the kind of trial and error things that we did, right? So you understood, right? So if you just do something with the data, it normally gives you a plot, but the plot might not be really meaningful to you. However, like if you really want to get the kind of information with that, like maybe you might have to take a mean, or like you might have to do a median, or like maybe you'll have to do something else and then do it. Okay, right. Any questions here, guys? Like in terms of understanding the graph? Anyone?
Not really.
Not really, right?
Fine, yeah.
Okay. It looks good, right? So now I'm also asking you to do the same stuff, right? With the cylinder, right? Nothing really hard, right? So basically, you're trying to use the same kind of code, right? So store that into kind of plot2 maybe, right? And then apply for the cycle. This is the number of cylinders, okay? And later, once you're done with this task, then I'll tell you how to change the access labels. For example, say I have factor here and mean my underscore mpg, but I don't want to do it like that. But I want to have a kind of a very good graph. Like it should be kind of presentable graph. And also, I'll also tell you how to color the chart where it is kind of distinct. It's kind of black and blue. Say not black and blue, it's kind of black and gray and stuff where it's not really pleasing. But I just want to make it really colorful, and I'll also do that. But just now, just go with the plot and try to plot with cylinders. So the number of cylinders and miles per gallon. And once you're done, and just put it in the chat box, and then I'll get a kind of update. Right. So there is one. Okay, Venkat has done it. Perfect. How is going with everyone else? Like, and even has done it. Nice, pretty good.
Well, I'm not able to type.
Who is that?
Naveen.
Okay, I see. No problem. I mean, like you can always
because,
unmute yourself and then talk to me. No problem. No worries.
Yeah, because I'm holding my daughter. She's crying. So,
Oh, it's okay. So I forgot to ask you, like, what's your profession? I mean,
same like Venkat. We're working in the same company.
okay, both are working together, right? So
Yeah.
okay, right. So
Developer.
okay, so it's like I do I really know you all? Like I think I'm pretty not sure.
No, actually, Ram invited me to this.
You are from Bangalore.
Yeah.
You're Ram Kannan's friend then.
Yes.
You both. Oh, okay. Pretty good.
Ram, me, Venkat, we are all
Okay.
working in the same company.
Okay, so like if I have any questions on kind of Java or anything, I can only go to Ram because I don't know anything in Java.
Okay.
Yeah, good to know. Nice.
But Pala, I don't know about you. I think I missed something or just
Because I never shared anything about me. So, like okay, so I'm actually from Salem. I belong to. I'm a very good friend of Ram, and Ram's brother is my student. Was my student. Ram has a younger brother. His name is. Sorry, I forgot his name, but he is a student of me, and then later I got introduced to Ram Kannan through him. My wife learned PHP from Ram Kannan. That's how we met each other, and then we got to know each other. And I was teaching in Salem, and later on I did my master's in the UK. I just want to get specialized in consumer psychology. So I'm not a kind of hardcore programmer, but I'm a consumer psychologist. And then I completed my consumer psychology course from the UK. Later on, I moved back to India and looked for some potential jobs in terms of teaching, but I did not really get any good jobs. And then I thought, okay, maybe I need to really do PhD and then complete PhD. So it comes, if you want to stay in academia and you're supposed to complete PhD. Then I applied to PhD across the globe. Like I applied to Switzerland, Netherlands, and then also with Norway, and tried with some UK universities, but didn't really apply. But I wanted to apply there. But I got an opportunity to work with Professor Christoph, who is really my very good advisor. And for him, I need to learn R, and I need to teach R in the class. And so I had a kind of a basic intro to R, and this guy really taught me a lot more stuff in R, and that's how I am to R, and I'm teaching. So I'm here as until like 2023, and then if I really successfully complete my PhD, and then I will become a kind of a doctor, Balachandar. That's how my
Oh,
journey is.
okay.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Good, Bala. All the best for you.
Yeah, looking forward for it. I hopefully I'll get it done. Right. So, right. How many of you have done it? Like everyone has done it? Okay, Swati done it. Okay, good. Okay, did you all do the same? Like you took the summary of it and then did it? Right. That's also important, right? So you understand how things go on. Because I kind of like make quite a lot of mistake like this, and my professor used to correct me. He normally advises me on like how to analyze, how to approach data, because he worked as a data scientist, and he normally tells me what kind of things I'm supposed to do with data, like in terms of understanding data, in terms of providing meaning, extracting meaning from the data, and he's really good at it. Hence, I learn a lot from him. Okay, so the information that I'm missing here is like. Okay, I think this should be the graph that you got, right?
Yeah.
Right. So if you look at this graph and what kind of interpretation that you can give now?
It says if the cylinder number increases, the mileage decreases.
Okay, so which means like possibly that like if you're trying to increase the engine capacity with the number of cylinders that it has, right? And if you want to have more throttle and speed and stuff, and basically it reduces mileage, right? That's what happens with the higher end cars. Like they have more cylinders and they have more horsepower and stuff, right? And then it basically reduces your miles per gallon. Okay. And let's see how to make this more colorful, right? So that's this thing that we are supposed to do. And with aesthetics function, there you can also do many other things, okay? And you can also give another command called as color, okay? And you say, there's something called fill command, and fill you say factor cylinder. Okay, let's execute that function. Okay, now we get a colorful stuff. Okay. So what this code basically does is that it understands, okay, there are like 3 factors already, and then also you can see another legend comes in. This legend tells you what color it belongs to category. Like number 4 has a kind of orangish color, and then you have green and then blue color, right? So it gives you the indication. Right? And we can also customize this one. Like we can also change this aspect here. But we'll just focus on changing the axis labels today, and then the next upcoming weeks we can work on like how to change this legend, and also how to change the background color and other things later on, right? So let's see how to like I hope you understand, right? So in terms of like you can add another function here called fill, and basically you can copy that one. Like you can just use the same axis information and then do it. Imagine that you have another variable. Okay, and then you want to overlay it, and you can also do that here, right? And that is also possible, but it depends upon the question that you're having, right? So next week what I'll do is like I'll try to create those kind of questions and then put it in front of you, and next week you'll basically work with dplyr and ggplot, and I'll kind of create a kind of small hypothesis, and then we work with the data and then try to understand how to decode information from graphs and stuff. Okay. And there is also something called as color command. I normally get messed up with this one, but if I just say color command, try and if I implement that. Okay, let's wait for it. It's not getting executed. System is too slow to respond. What normally happens is that it normally gives a color on the edges of the bars, but not within. Okay, so that's why I normally use fill command. Like it actually does the same stuff, right? Similar to what I did with the fill function. But however, the color command only works for the borders of the bars, not within. Hence, I normally use fill command. The fill command can provide me kind of very good color to my chart. Okay. Imagine I just want to fill with without any kind of let's say blue color, maybe. Oh, sorry, there is one more. I just need to wait for my system to respond, right? If I just say fill blue, and the entire bars will be filled with blue color. Okay, right. Oh, sorry. Okay. Okay, so it has to go like that. Okay, like I'll sort that one out. Like it has to actually fill that with blue color, right? So I'm pretty not sure how that works, but I'll work on it next week, and then like we can do that, like in terms of like filling it with the exact color that you want, in terms of like whether you want blue color or white color or yellow color and stuff that we can do, right? So at the moment, I just restrict myself to factor cylinder. Let's move on and understand how to add labels, right? And the labels that you can say, imagine if there are two functions here, xlab, okay, and there's something called ylab, right? Now, whatever that you want to give in the xlab, and you can say number of cylinders, mean miles per gallon. There is a plus missing here. My system is too slow. Maybe you can try in your system. I think it should work. Where it says it can relabel, it can change the labels on the x-axis and y-axis. Okay, now you can see we have changed the legend, axis label on x-axis and y-axis with the desired name. Okay, this can be done. Yep. In the next week, what I'll do is like I'll try to tell you how to customize the background color. Now the background information, like there are something called theme, and also I'll also try to find some information related to how to fill with colors. But it should work. Like I have done it a couple of times, but it's not really working today. And then I'll try to sort that one out in the next week, and also we'll see. Also, we'll try to create a kind of a messy graph, especially like where your x-axis labels are kind of overlapped, and we can like kind of rectify that one. Imagine you're plotting a bar chart with n number of categories. Okay, and what happens is that these x-axis labels will normally get overlapped on each other. However, like you can also with the ggplot function, you can basically rectify those things where you can change the alignment of the angle of the x-axis labels, and then present it in a very nice way. And I'll also create a kind of a task related to that. Okay, right. So any questions here, guys, in terms of understanding ggplot?
One small question.
Yeah, please.
When we used xlab, the title and the graph changed, but then the title and the legend didn't change. So do we have to do something else? Or?
In the legend instance, the factor cycle. This is what you mean? Yeah, this is a different thing. Okay, I'm not covering that today.
Okay.
And because that has a different command altogether.
Okay. Yeah.
So customizing this axis legend, And also the background color. For example, say I just want to have a plain background, right? Instead of having kind of a gray shade. By default, whenever you print anything as a graph, and basically it gives you this grid lines here. It's called grid lines, and it also gives you kind of a gray background. Okay, you can basically change that one. Which we'll deal in the next week, where we can make it even more pleasing. And also you can see there's a gap at the bottom of the graph, okay, which the x-axis does not gel up with the numbers, right? It is supposed to be here, right? The 0 has to be here.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the normal graph that we do in your college or university, right? So this has to go at the bottom. Right? And for that, you will have to do some customization, which we'll do in the next week. Yeah, and like a lot more customization can be done. Like we'll do that next week. And now I'll give you another task, right? So now these two are kind of data which has categorical data and then continuous data. What do I mean by categorical data? The number of cylinders is a categorical data. The miles per gallon is a continuous data. It has like, it runs from 0 to 20 or something, but it has like decimal places, like 20.9, 30.1 or something like that, right? This is a factor data, whereas like 4, 5, 8, 4, 6, 8 are kind of categories. And I call that as a categorical data. Okay. And why this understanding is required? Because if you want to plot something, in a bar plot will normally go along with either count data, where I just want to count and categorize information, or I am trying to see kind of a relationship between a categorical data and then kind of continuous data, and I can go for a bar chart, right? But if in case I want to plot two continuous data, where it's something like miles per gallon with something else, right? And I'm basically supposed to approach another kind of chart called a scatter plot. Okay, we'll do a scatter plot now and see how things are looking. Okay. We have the empty cast information. And if you look at the data here, the VS is another categorical data. And AM is another categorical data. It runs like 1 or 0. Gear is another categorical data. The carb is another categorical data. But the weight of the car and the displacement and the MPG, the dart and other things are like kind of continuous data. Okay. If I want to see the relationship between the weight and the miles per gallon, and I cannot really plot a bar chart, right, which is not meaningful, hence I'll go for a scatter plot. Okay, let's plot a scatter plot now. So how would I start it? I'll basically start with the ggplot stuff, and I say empty cars because I'm just going to use the empty cars information. I say axis, and I just want to have MPG in the Y because that is what I am predicting, right? And basically, when you want to become a data scientist, right? So now also you should know dependent and independent variables. I'll talk about it later in the next session. But now I am kind of giving kind of overview of it, right? Where I say X is weight of the car, and then MPG is the y-axis of the car, like y-axis of the graph. Okay, so weight for me is a kind of independent, like it's kind of independent variable that's going to affect my dependent variable. Okay, I'll provide more explanation next week, but this is my x-axis here. Okay, so this is going to affect my miles per gallon. Okay, that's what I want to kind of give you a kind of overview of it. Hence, I take it in the x-axis and I put it in the y-axis. If you remember from your 12th standard stuff, right, where you normally 12th or 11th standard, where you normally look at something called regression, where y is equal to a plus bx. Right? The x is the kind of independent variable, y is the dependent variable. Okay, so that's what we are dealing with here. So I'm trying to initially see the relationship between these two variables, right, with a graph, and the best graph for that is a scatter plot. And for the scatter plot, and it's a different thing here. So you're supposed to use geom point. Okay, and say just leave it blank. Like, you don't have to really define anything here, right? Basically, it will understand because there are two continuous data. If I plot it, and I can see the graph for the graph for miles per gallon predicted. Miles per gallon is predicted by the weight of the car. Yeah. What you can see is the kind of try to interpret this data, please. Anyone? What do you understand by this data?
So I believe for the corresponding weight, this so for each weight there is a corresponding miles per gallon or mileage.
Yeah, that's also true, which is a very good point. Yeah.
But then for increasing weight, we have a roughly decreasing mileage.
Yeah, true. So you can see, no, the scatter plot has to be observed in a way how the dots are moving along with the axis, right? And if you see the miles per gallon is high with 35, and then the weight of the car is like from 2, 3, 4, and 5. Still, it's kind of running in the numeric way, right? It looks like a categorical data. It's not actually, right? But it gives you kind of a very basic axis of it, like axis labels. So the graph has to be observed in a way that there is a relationship between x and y, and where the weight of the car, when it is low, the miles per gallon that you get is really high. It goes really low, and like when it is like when the weight of the car is moving higher, like when it's 5 or something, the mileage that you get is like somewhere around 10. So this is called as negative correlation, basically. And there's a negative relationship between these two variables. So when there's an increase in the weight of the car, the miles per gallon normally decreases. Okay. And now we told you that we can also do some sort of more aesthetics here. If you say curl is equal to actor gears, you can also customize the graph again. What should happen now is like these dots here within will identify its category. Okay, and it will plot and show, okay, so how the gear is also sorry it's not okay. So maybe I'll do that advanced customization like in the next session, right? So that's how like you do I understand. The problem is here. So whenever you're filling something, then you're supposed to give it within the axis labels. So within the aesthetics function. I just gave it beyond that one, so it will not really recognize that particular information. Hence, it's always advised, like it's also keep in mind that whenever you're doing some sort of coloring and customization, and do it within the axis labels. Okay. Now it fills in, but it's not really give you color. Maybe just try color. Yeah, so the coloring works now. Now you can see also see how the gear information is also overlaid within this scatter plot. Okay, and whenever I have some sort of like experimental condition like X, there are like two treatment given to respondents, then I normally use this one, and then see how things are varying. Okay, so now you can see it's spread across, like but the weight of the car is like the higher weight car basically has lesser gear, but it's not a kind of a very good proposition, to be honest. But maybe if there are people who are really working in the automobile sector, they'll really know well. Right? But if you look at the blue color here, they are like the gear type is mentioned here in the blue color, where you can see the weight of the car is less for those kind of things. This can be observed, right? So this is another way of plotting, and it's another way to do stuff. Okay. And any questions here in terms of building a sketch plot, trying to understand sketch plots and stuff? Okay. Let's see. Nope. Perfect. Right. So then I'll end up the session today we will start advanced customization with ggplot, and then we'll try to work more with dplyr in the upcoming weeks. And now, if you have any questions, you can ask me, or else we can end the session for this week, and we can move ahead to the next week, like understanding more about ggplot and then other things. Yep.
I have one small.
Yep, please.
Could you please update the information about the statistics course in our R programming Skype group when it's available? I mean.
Yeah, sure. I will do that. Now, I'll put that in Skype.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
That
and
should be
I'll
good.
update you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay, no problem. So what I'll do is like I'll just copy this the code that I wrote here, right? So, and I also do some sort of editing, and then I'll upload that in the Skype group chat, and so that you can access this file, right? And the next week we'll have more of dplyr and ggplot working together. And I'll also explain you how to customize the graphs, and also I'll explain you how to wrangle the data in a better way with dplyr and other things. So I am trying to kind of build in a loop now. Instead of telling everything, I'll kind of give you only instructions in the next week. You will just put everything together in place. So you learn most of the things with dplyr, and you learn most of the things with ggplot. Not most of the things, like kind of basic introduction to ggplot. But now it's time to apply both together, right? And then see how things can work along, and how to really create a beautiful graph with the data that you have. So if everything is good, and I'll say have a nice weekend, enjoy yourself. Let's meet again next week. Bye.
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 Bye.